Live from the bridge at the Launchpad Studios in Huntington, New York, it's Sports Talk New York with your hosts, Mark Rosenman and AJ Carter. Sports Talk New York is sponsored in part by Cardboard Memories, Clearview, Long Island, the law firm of Decolator, Cohen, and DePrisco, the Phoenix Tube Company, PIMS Incorporated, fueling brand performance for 30 years, Prince Associates for all your insurance needs, and Soho Table Hockey. Here are your hosts, Mark and AJ.
And good Sunday evening to you. No, not Mark and AJ, just Mark and Mike Capice with you this Sunday. AJ probably sitting down right now having, he's definitely not asking the 4 questions because he's definitely not the youngest in his family. He's probably on his 5th cup of Manischewitz, but he'll be back next week. Just wishing everyone out there a very happy Passover, Palm Sunday as well. So we're wishing everyone a happy holiday, and we're going to get our show started as we do each and every week with the Cardboard Memories Major League Baseball Report with John Coppinger. It's sponsored by Cardboard Memories, which is one of Long Island's most reputable memorabilia retail stores for over 29 years. The owners of Cardboard Memories, Scott Stimmel, is known for his knowledge and savvy of authentic autographs, and he's been featured on HBO's Real Sports with Bryant Gumbel. Cardboard Memories possesses the honesty and integrity one would want and need from a memorabilia source. Scott personally works with each customer to ensure they understand the authenticity of each item. Every piece of autographed memorabilia is purchased directly from the source. Cardboard Memories also specializes in custom framing, appraisals, and authentication, and they're always buying collections large and small. Let Cardboard Memories run your next charity fundraising auction. Call them to find out how they can help your organization at no cost. Cardboard Memories is located at 6401 Jericho Turnpike, Comac, New York. Visit them on the web at www.cardboardmemories.com or follow them on Facebook or Instagram. How you doing, Johnny?
Doing good. Hope you're well. Happy Palm Sunday and happy Passover to everybody.
Yeah, I'm doing okay. It's always good to be here, whatever the day is. It's, whether a holiday or not, come Sunday, we're always loving to do this show. So what we're going to do today is we are going to basically talk about the National League East and the American League East. And both of them arguably could be considered the best divisions in baseball. Let's start with the National League East, all right, where the Mets are. You take a look at the Braves. They have a perfectly fine rotation without Mike Soroka, who, in case people don't remember, only made 3 starts last year before tearing his Achilles, missed the rest of the year. He's been throwing off the mound. The Braves do expect him back. They don't have an official timetable for his return. Can they win the division without him?
I think they can. You look at the Braves; they still have everybody coming back. They brought back Marcell Ozuna. They're getting a little bit. Their young players are a little bit older, a little bit wiser. They're still talented as all heck. And with any team with Acuna, Dansby Swanson, and Ozuna, guys like that young pitching staff, even without Soroka, I think they're going to contend. I think they're going to be right there until the end. I don't think anybody should be surprised if they win the division.
So it's interesting that you bring up Ozuna. So he was so close to winning the Triple Crown last year. The thing is, without a DH, the Braves can't hide his defense. And people are forgetting about his St. Louis Cardinal numbers. So which Ozuna do you think we're going to get this year? The Braves of last year or the Cardinals of a couple of years ago?
It's a great question. I think we could see somewhere in between. I think that what matters more than most people think is comfort level. He obviously wasn't comfortable in St. Louis, but he was more comfortable in Atlanta. And like I say all the time, with guys who've had great years during the pandemic, I think that means something. I think things will get a little bit easier for everybody this year, and I think that is something I think that's something in Ozuna's favor. Now, listen, he's never going to be a great defender, and he could slip a little. I mean, he put up insane numbers that I don't think he could keep up over 162 games, but he'll be good enough, I think, to help the Braves, help that lineup, help provide protection to guys like Acuna and Freeman.
So it's interesting that you mentioned Acuna, and in the chat room, I'm hopefully pronouncing his name correctly, David DeConnick asks this question: would you rather have Juan Soto or Tatis Jr. to start a team? The guy who is never in the mix, that never gets mentioned with the young superstars, is Ronald Acuna Jr. He doesn't get that love that the Bo Bichettes or even get. Why do you think Acuna is so overlooked? And do you think this might be the year that he becomes the face of the Braves rather than Freddie Freeman?
It certainly could be. I think Acuna has been a face of the Braves, and it's funny you mentioned that Acuna doesn't get mentioned. I watched a lot of Korean baseball last year, and it was on ESPN, which means they had their healthy dose of interviews during the game, like the very same things that drove us nuts this year during spring training. And there was an extended conversation as to who the best player was or who would you rather start your team with. And Acuna was in that conversation along with Soto and Tatis. I think Acuna is probably could be the most complete player of the three. I think Soto's the best hitter of the three. And I think when it's all said and done, as long as he remains relatively healthy, and I know he's got some problems in spring training, Tatis could have the best career of the three and the most accomplished career of the three. So I don't think you can go wrong with any of the three, but I do think Acuna gets the love that he deserves. Probably not, maybe not enough, but I think he'll get there. I think he's right there in the pantheon, and I certainly think sooner rather than later he'll take the mantle of being at least one of the faces of the Braves franchise, if he's not there already.
All right, so let's turn our attention to the Mets. The Mets, Citi Field might be, quote unquote, a pitcher's park. The Mets lineup, however, might not make it seem that way. With the addition of Lindor, this lineup suddenly looks stacked. Probably not a weak spot in the lineup all the way through number 8. James McCann possibly is their worst hitting regular. Of course, everyone has to stay healthy, but bringing in Lindor just elevates everyone's game. Think about it. If this lineup played at Coors Field or the Great American Ballpark in Cincinnati, you might pencil in every starter for 30 home runs. They might each hit 20. What do you expect out of the starting lineup from the Mets this season?
I certainly think that they're going to provide protection for each other up and down the lineup. I mean, you got guys like Alonso, who everybody talks about the down year Alonso had last year, and he did have a down year when you talk about the two that he had. But even in a down year, he was on pace for 43 home runs. So, and he certainly looks better in spring training. His swing looks better. So I think you talk about things like that are going to have a ripple effect throughout the lineup. I expect J.D. Davis to bounce back from what he did last year. I think, and then I think that's going to help everybody in the bottom of the lineup. If James McCann is your worst hitter, then you've got good problems. The only question is, how do you construct the lineup? Listen, you go back to 2006, and I know everybody likes to put their best hitter second to give him more at bats, but when you look at 2006, they had a guy in Paul LaDuca who was excellent at making contact, getting the leadoff hitter to third base, which was Jose Reyes back then. And that team in 2006 scored, I think, more runs than any Mets team had in history. I think this team can approach that. I think with a lineup against righties with Nimmo up top, McNeil being that Paul LaDuca guy in the 2-hole, creating, getting base hits, moving the guy to third, and causing havoc by making contact. Then you got the rest of the guys coming up after that. I think this could be a lethal lineup no matter where they play. And Citi Field is a fairer ballpark than it was in the early years back in 2009, 2010, before they brought the fences in. So I think it's going to be a lot of fun offensively this year.
Let's turn our attention to the starting rotation. Obviously, it begins with Jacob deGrom, who is definitely most likely, as long as he stays healthy, going to be in the Cy Young Award mix. You got Syndergaard, who will be back sometime during the season. Carrasco will be back as well. You have Stroman, who's pitching for a contract. The addition of Walker, David Peterson. This lineup will give them a little more wiggle room. I don't believe you're going to have that many no decisions for deGrom this year. I certainly don't think he's going to lose a lot of games 1-0 anymore. What do you make of the pitching staff, and how much of a factor will McCann be, behind the dish for this pitching staff?
I'm bullish on this starting rotation. I've been bullish on Marcus Stroman ever since I found out that he spent this winter working with Codify. I think he's going to have a big year. Trevor May, not to stray from the rotation, but Trevor May is another Codify guy that we should watch this year to see what he does out of the pen. But the starting rotation, listen, they're not going to have Carrasco early on. They're not going to have Syndergaard maybe until the All-Star break. But you're looking at depth now in that rotation with Walker now in the 3 spot, who I think is going to be okay. I think Peterson's going to be okay in that 4 spot. Then you look at Joey Lucchesi in the 5th spot, and he's proven himself very well this spring. I think I like the experiment using Jacob Barnes as an opener for Lucchesi. I think that has the potential of working out well. And then you got Jordan Yamamoto in the minors for some depth to be that first guy up if there's another injury. So I do think the Mets starting rotation, it may not be of the level of those 5 aces way back when, but I think the rotation as is now, even with the injuries, is going to be exactly what they need to move forward.
All right, taking a look at the Nationals, Steven Strasburg, there may be no pitcher in baseball more important to a team, both in short term and long term. You think about what the Nationals did as far as asset management. They paid Strasburg for what he did. All right, they let Bryce Harper and Anthony Rendon walk, using the money that they would have needed for Strasburg. His first post-World Series contract, obviously that first season's a bust, making those 2 starts, and that was it. How important will it be to have a Steven Strasburg type year for the Nationals to contend?
I think it's everything. Not to get all internety, but I do think that it's everything for the Nationals. When you look at the rest of their starting rotation, you've got Patrick Corbin, who's very good and is still in kind of the prime of his career. You've got Matt Scherzer, who started to show some wear and tear last year, and now he's a year older. You've got John Lester, who you're bringing in as the 4th starter. You don't really know what you're going to get from him, I think, this year. And then the 5th starter, who knows? I think Strasburg needs to have a huge year for the Nationals to even tread water. I think if Strasburg falls apart, and maybe even if he doesn't fall apart, but certainly if he falls apart, I think the Nationals are staring last place in the face.
Ooh. Wow, that's a bold prediction. All right, Phillies for me, their center field and their bullpen are too big of a question mark for them to be contenders. So I'm looking at it this way. I'm predicting the Mets because obviously I wear my heart on my sleeve. Coming in first place, I say they're going to win 95 games. I have the Braves in second, 92 and 70. The Nats, I think, the Nats somehow find ways to win. I'm going with the Nats at 83 and 79. Phillies at 79 and 83, and the Marlins, last year was an aberration. It's just strange. I got the Marlins in last. What do you see for that division?
I think it's a possibility that now in terms of, I think the Braves and the Mets are at the top of the division, and then I think there's everybody else, and I think you're going to see a divide. I wear my Mets heart on my sleeve also, and that's why I'm going to say the Braves are going to win the division, because I don't want to come off as a homer. But I'm thinking it's more along the lines of, like you said, the Braves 92. I think the Mets could win 91. I think the Marlins showed that they are for real in terms of taking the next step. Not so much in being a perennial playoff contender, but I think they showed last year through everything that they at least had the talent to compete. Sandy Alcantara, I think, is going to have a big year for them. I think he's somebody that they should watch out for. And then they have Starling Marte in center. I think they're going to do just enough to tread water. I see them in third. I really do. And then I think you're right about the Phillies. Their bullpen scares me. I think they're in fourth. The Nationals, yes, they find ways to win. They have a lot of talent, but Soto and Turner and Robles are going to have to win a lot of games for them, and they have to hope that pitching holds up. If they do, I think they can go up to third place, and I think they can compete. But I worry about them. I worry about their age. I worry about their durability. So I'm gonna make the bold prediction and say last place.
All right, American League East, not too shabby either. Let's start with the defending champions. You start with it and just simply state this: Chris Archer and Michael Walker are not Blake Snell and Charlie Morton. How do the Rays offset that rotation fall off?
Well, with their depth, like they did last year. I think you got the Rays always seem to find guys that come up and are willing to take the next step. I worry about them losing guys like Snell and Morton, and also Nick Anderson now, who was really good as their closer last year as one of their bullpen pieces. Now he's got an arm injury. So I worry about the Rays a little bit. But again, they've got depth and they find ways to win. And I think that what's going to play in their favor too is that the Blue Jays and the Yankees also seem to have their problems injury-wise. The Blue Jays, they lost Kirby Yates for the year. Jordan Romano could step in and be their closer and they could be all right. But the thing to worry about with them, the oblique injury, the abdominal injury to George Springer. He was their big gun, and now abdominal injuries, as you know, are tricky. He's got to come back healthy almost from jump. And if he can do that, I think the Blue Jays can overtake them. But if he has injury problems the whole year, if this hurts him for an extended period of time, then I'm not sure the Blue Jays can take that next step. The Yankees, I think, have the same issues. Justin Wilson's hurt. Luke Voigt has a significant injury now. He's got a knee injury. And then you've got Corey Kluber now as their second starter. If the Mets had a Corey Kluber be their second starter who's pitched 8 games in the last 2 years, we'd be killing them. I think the Yankees I think they're going to hit enough, and I think they could also be in third place and still make the playoffs. That's how bad the bottom of the division is with the Red Sox and the Orioles. But I think the Rays are going to be saved because there's issues with the Blue Jays and the Yankees. So put a gun to my head, I would say Rays, Jays, Yankees, with all 3 making the playoffs, and then the Red Sox 4th, the Orioles 5th, even with Matt Harvey as their second starter.
All right, so I have the Yankees in first, and I have them at 94 and 68, which is 1 game less than the Mets. I just had to do that. I have Toronto at 90 and 72. I think Tampa Bay, I just think they're going to strive. You know what? They do the little things right, and somehow they always manage to be competitive. But this year, that's just so much to ask. And plus the fact, the Blue Jays are better, with Springer in that lineup. And I think that's going to, take a lot of pressure off Vlad Jr. And I think this is going to be a huge breakout year for Vlad Jr. So I just think that's a lot to overcome for the Rays. So I have them at 503rd. Boston is just a mess with their pitching. I got them at 77 and 85. And Baltimore, even with Matt Harvey, it's going to be a struggle to win 65. But it's always great because, we file these away. And if we're right, we post them. And if not, we just we never said that.
We forget about them.
Exactly. All right, Johnny, we'll speak to you next Sunday. Have a great one. John Coppinger heard here each and every week with the Cardboard Memories Major League Baseball report. We're going to take a quick break, and on the other side, we're going to bring in a very good friend of mine, Howie Karpin, so keep it tuned right here.
If you're a company looking to increase your visibility, to make sure your promotional materials get packaged in the most attractive way and distributed most efficiently, then you need to call in PIMS. Whether you're launching a new product and need to assemble customized influencer packages, or looking for a more efficient way to manage your inventory and collateral, PIMS involvement helps maximize the impact of your brand's performance. For more than 30 years, PIMS has been helping companies get their message out to the right people, offering personalized distribution services and full-scale inventory management solutions. PIMS works its magic on 3 continents, backed by 350,000 square feet of warehouse space. If you're looking for experience, PIMS is it. They've shipped more than 13 million packages and elevated more than 8,000 brands. Want to know more? Check them out on the web, PIMSinc.com. That's PIMSinc.com, and read testimonials from their satisfied clients. That's PIMS, the first name in marketing support.
Do you own a business? When is the last time you actually had a visit from or even spoke with your insurance representative? Did your current insurance agency sell to another firm or maybe merge, leaving you without the attention you deserve? Prince Associates is a provider of commercial insurance nationwide and represents some of the finest insurance carriers in the industry. Prince Associates has been representing commercial clients since 1965, and we continue to grow and offer our personal services in a competitive and ever-changing market. If you want back the insurance relationship you deserve, reach out to us, 516-822-6550. That's area code 516-822-6550. And ask for Leith or Craig, or find us on the web at www.princeins.com.
And welcome back to Sports Talk New York. Mark Rosenman with you this Sunday evening. AJ is off today due to the Jewish holiday. He's celebrating Passover. I celebrated yesterday. Not celebrating it today, but happy Passover to those who are celebrating. Joining us now is a man who has worked as a sports journalist for over 40 years. He's been an accredited Major League Baseball official scorer in New York since 1999. If you're a sports fan, you have heard his voice 1,000 times, as he's a sports update regular on Sirius XM Sports. He's worked on numerous radio stations, including WCBS and WFAN. He's the host of Karpin's Corner, heard right here on the 365 Sportscast Network every Tuesday night at 7 p.m. He is the author of 10 books, 6 of which I have been lucky enough to be his co-author. Our latest, You Never Forget Your First, a collection of New York Mets first, is now available. It is a pleasure to welcome my very good friend, Howie Karpin. Welcome, Howie.
Thanks. You shouldn't be wasting the minutes with those credentials.
So, all right, before we talk about your book, though, let's talk about your career. Before you took to the airwaves and the official scorer's chair, you were actually scouted for the pros by the Detroit Tigers and the Minnesota Twins as a lefty pitcher and outfielder. You had a few tryouts for them as well. What was that experience like for you?
Well, realistically going in, I mean, I played 1 year of Division III, and then I played 10 years in the Sandlots, and that's where I got scouted. I mean, those tryouts were great, but you also came to the realization that it probably wasn't going to happen. But at least you could say you were competitive, and you competed in these tryouts. There was one here in Van Cortlandt Park in the Bronx, sponsored by an outlet that used to, they used to call themselves the Major League Scouting Bureau, and they'd send representatives from like 10, 11 teams down. There was 100 of us at that tryout. 50 of us made a cut and played in the game, and I actually pitched in that game. And then the next morning woke up with pain in my arm. And that was kind of like a wake-up call. And I had a tryout at Shea Stadium for the Mets. I actually, they had the machine pitch to you from the mound. They didn't have anybody really throw. So I hit a ball off the 385 at Shea. So it's something you could brag about. But it was it's a great experience. I love playing. I still play to this day, in some semblance of softball on a competitive level. And it's in my blood. I can't give it up.
So on top of that, you were actually the first broadcast media journalist to ever become an official scorer for the New York Yankees, a job that had previously been only given to print journalists. Tell us how that job came about and what that position means to you.
Yeah, well, it's actually the Yankees and the Mets. My first year, I'm covering local baseball here, Mets and Yankees since like 1980. So I saw that media people were doing the job. Bill Shannon, the late Bill Shannon, who ended up being my mentor. Red Foley, the late Red Foley, who worked for the Daily News way back when, and some of the other print guys were doing the job. It was a media guy, and after a while, I thought, I thought I was pretty good and knew the rules and thought I could do it. It took 18 years to actually get an opportunity because Bill Shannon finally pushed for it because him and Red were handling the bulk of the games, and they were getting, a little older. So Bill pitched me to Phyllis Merridge, who ran the American League scorers at that time. It was separate, American and National League. And she gave me a shot, like, the actor they find in the old Hollywood drugstore. Well, she threw me in a game in 1998. I only had one training session, and I actually did one game. So I guess I passed the audition, as John Lennon used to say. And I got hired in 99 for 10 American League games only, because only Phyllis hired me at that time. And they actually gave me 2 playoff games in that 99 season, which was unreal. I mean, that was a fifth of my whole schedule. And then in 2000, Katie Feeney ran the National League. Chub Feeney's daughter, remember Charles Feeney was big in the National League in the 60s and 70s. He was the president. She hired me for the Mets, and been doing both teams ever since. This is my 23rd year coming up.
So having played the game at such a high level, how much does that help you in your job as an official scorer?
Huge. I think I like to say, the guys that play the game and actually been on the field have a little bit of an advantage with making the calls. And that's not to downplay or throw anybody under the bus that hasn't really played the game at a certain level, because, you can observe the game and be smart about it as well. But it does give you, like I was an outfielder, first baseman, pitcher, so I kind of know what goes into making plays at those positions, and it kind of helps me with my scoring decisions. So, yeah, it's a big help.
So since you started as a scorer, how has technology changed, and how has it impacted your job?
Well, one thing is we used to actually fill out a form after the game, which was like the box score form, and they would fax it to Elias. Now we don't actually fill out the form, and the form is gathered on a computer, and then we have to double check it to make sure it's correct. There's technology now with angles we get to see at games, because we'll be on certain programs where we'll get a better angle maybe of a certain play, and we'll be able to look at things a little quicker than have to rely on the TV networks totally to give us a replay. Things like that to give us some advantages with the calls. They brought the scorers together to kind of, get the calls on the same page, but it's still going to be a level of subjectiveness there. So, there's always going to be that, but it's gotten a little better over the recent years, and they're really trying to add the technology without having to totally rely on the technology.
All right, so let's turn to your writing career. It started with the Yankees Essential, Everything You Need to Know to Be a Real Fan in 2007. You followed it up with a Mets book, 162, Imagine a Mets Perfect Season, a game-by-game analysis of the greatest Mets wins in history. How did those two projects come about?
Well, thanks to a guy you know, Kenny Samuelson, who worked in the publishing business. Kenny and I go back to the 70s at Lehman College, the Lehman College radio station. He worked in the publishing business, and he kind of pushed me to do a book. He thought I could do one, got me a project and a contract with Triumph. That's where Yankees Essential came from. And then I was approached about doing that Met book, 162-0, Imagine a Perfect Season, because they did a series of those. It wasn't just the Mets. It was the Cubs, the Phillies. I mean, you had enough history there to, what people, if they buy the book, what they would get is a compilation of great Met games over the years that make up a whole season, like where they couldn't lose. But we found the game on each date. That was a fun project, and David Wright did the forward on that. And we were off and running. So, when people came, I was lucky enough to get some offers to do some books, because people try and peddle their books, as we've done, recently, where we do it on our own. To push your own book in the older days was not easy. It's a little easier to do now, but you had to get a contract. A lot of times people would go with manuscripts to these publishers, and they wouldn't come out with anything. And I was lucky. My first two, I had a contract, so to see my name in print, the feeling. It's very rewarding.
So let's talk about how our partnership started. Because if it wasn't for you, I would have never had my name on a book, let alone 7 of them. Do you remember that conversation and where it took place?
It had to be at the Garden at a Ranger game.
Yep.
I don't know if I met you in the stands or in the box.
It was in the box, yeah. And
okay, so it had to be in the box.
Yeah,
because I made a lot of friends with people in the stands. They'd always talk to us. When you sat in the box, that the blue seats are right behind the old press box. That was great.
Yeah.
I mean, those days were great. But yeah, it must have been in the box.
Yeah, and you just kept on pushing me, and that's how it started. And each one of our books has been such a great experience for me. Of the 6 we've done together, which is the one that stands out to you and why?
Well, I think it's going to be tough, even though I like this one right now that we just did. Down on the Corner is special because there's a lot of, it's unique. No one ever really did anything on it. And it the subject was popular among, the locals here, the Met fans, even Yankee fans and national baseball fans. To get the stories behind the scenes and all that, and you did the interviews, a great job with those. And that was a really good one. I like that one's my favorite so far.
So the process of 5 of the 6 books have been pretty much the same. You and I lay out the format, we do the research, we conduct the interviews, and you turn those interviews into oral histories. What was your process when you get the thousands of audio that I send you to pick what works within the framework of our books?
Well, you wanted to make it sound, even though like now I say, you kind of stumble a little naturally. You want to make it, readable, and you got to eliminate the in-betweens and make it sound, they're talking, it's their dialogue, but you have to make it, text-wise, you have to convert it to a text. So, you have to go through everything they say to make sure you don't miss anything. You can't write every word that they say, but there's so much good stuff in there that you really have to sift through it carefully and not try and miss anything, and then convert that into a text, which is kind of tricky. There's a little bit of, work to it, but, it seems to work. The format, people like to read what these guys are saying as you read quotes in the newspaper and stuff like that. But this is in a book. It's in their words, and we add our little tidbits of information about it, to make it a little more interesting.
Over the course of the journey with all these books, one of the things I love is when we come across a hidden gem story. Was there one in this book that was your favorite at all?
One that intrigued me was the one with Butch Benton and his relationship with Joe Torre, because Joe Torre is widely, respected, and maybe not so much in Butch Benton's household, but that was kind of interesting. And, who knows, that could have been a misunderstanding in itself, but, we went with that. Art Shamsky had some great stuff, in his chapter, which was really intriguing. And some of the people that you don't think about, Benny Agbayani, Benny Ayala, people like that. Even Bobby Valentine had some really good stuff in there. So, people go through the book, they're really going to enjoy it. Stories of baseball gives you a lot of stories like any sport, but it seems like baseball stories are really special. And we've got a lot of good ones in here. Jesse Orozco had some great stuff. Some of the unique stuff, like, appearing on TV for the first time and things like that. Some of the guys, the 69 guys, when they went on the Sullivan Show, when they talked about that, I found that very interesting because I certainly remember that. Wow, 69.
Yeah, for me, like the really weird stuff is like Terry Leach's first win, and he talked about how he's got half of the game ball. And when I pressed him on it, he told me that Ray Searage has the other half because Ray Searage got his first major league save in that game. And just to track Ray Searage down and to get the picture of the two halves of the ball on a plaque, I thought that was pretty neat. That was a pretty cool story that we were able to unearth. So even though this is a companion to the New York Ranger book that we did, the same title, You Never Forget Your First, a collection of New York Rangers first, what are some of the differences when writing about the different sports, even within the context of the same framework?
Well, the big difference in the Ranger book and this baseball and this Met book, in the Met book, you had some Spanish-speaking, players, so you have to decipher, what they're actually saying because you want to get that right. You don't want to misquote them because you didn't understand what they were saying. In the Ranger book, there was a lot more of that because of the international flavor in hockey and, the certain accents when they're talking to you. Because when you sent me the interviews, I'm getting the audio, so I'm hearing it right, from them, even though it's written down thanks to a certain app. But even the app, doesn't pick up certain things. So, it tells you one thing and it's totally different. So after a while, you get to learn the nuances of the app. So you can almost kind of figure what they're going to say, but you still have to check it. So, with players that have accents and come from foreign countries and international, this app has problems deciphering what they're saying. So that made it a little more tougher with the hockey. So you couldn't move through the chapter as fast, at least writing it, than you could with the baseball book.
So we used a lot of the same questions for players, and then obviously we added, other firsts based on the player. Was there one question that was an overarching theme throughout the book that you thought elicited some of the best responses?
Yeah, the first spring trainings with Casey Stengel, because we had a number of those. You caught on with a number of the older players like Frank Thomas and Hobie Landreth. I mean, those were great. I mean, look, he was an amazing character. So it's unreal that you hear more things about him that you never heard before. So yeah, I think those spring training sessions with Casey were the most intriguing.
So what is, for you, the most gratifying moment throughout the process of doing a book?
Probably when you get it, and you see it in print, because you're done. I mean, when you get the text done and we get the manuscript finalized, that it's like a two-step process. That's one part of it. And then when you see the actual book, God willing, you live a long life, but when you're gone, your name's going to be on a book somewhere, and hopefully, people, when they see your name, they'll smile and say, "Hey, I knew that guy from back when." So,
what do you hope that the readers of this book take away from this book?
Just enjoyment and enjoying, getting to enjoy some baseball stories. I think we all need that going into this opening day. I mean, this is a different opening day now because of what happened last year. It's a real opening day. Last year was so, I like the fact that I got to work a little bit, but the whole season seems surreal to me. It didn't seem real. So this time around, we got a real opening day in a couple of days, and I hope people will really get into this book and get back into the spirit of baseball, because no matter how many times they try and say it's a dying sport, it still seems to stay around.
So when we start on our next one?
You're the man with the ideas. You come up with the ideas, that's for sure, and you've had some great ones.
All right, so tell our listeners where they can hear your great show on this very same network, Karpin's Corner, and what they can expect when they tune in on Tuesday nights at 7 p.m.
Yeah, we're moving to Tuesday. We were on Sunday. I try and give you at least 2 guests a week, 2 interesting guests. We've had some good ones. We're going to have Kevin Burkhart on Tuesday night from Fox Sports, and an old friend of mine. Luckily, in my 41 plus years in the business, I made a lot of connections and a lot of friends. And it's great to bring them on and talk about what they've experienced and also about topical events. I hope to have Marley Rivera on as well on Tuesday night. That hasn't been confirmed as yet, but we're hoping for that. So we'll have a nice show. We'll talk some baseball and some football. We try and, we have some great shows on 365sportscast.com. A lot of them focus on baseball. I try to be a little more general and spread it out with the four majors and cover football, basketball, and hockey. Try and entertain you with a couple of sounders, a little commentary, and just make it as interesting as possible. And hopefully people will join us every Tuesday night at 7.
Looking forward to listening. It's always a great listen. People can get our new book. It's available on Amazon, or if you want, you can message Howie or I if you want some autographed copies on Facebook, on Twitter. Howie, thanks so much for your time tonight. More importantly, thanks so much for your friendship, your mentorship, your guidance over the years, and pushing me to do a book, which is now turned into 7. None of that would have been possible if it wasn't for you. So I just can't tell you how much I appreciate it.
Well, I've been very fortunate in my life to have made a large number of friends, and you're right in there at the top of the list. So much appreciated.
Appreciate it, Howie. I'll hear you on Tuesday. Have a great,
right, buddy.
Have a great day. Howie Karpin. Definitely check out his show Tuesday night and pick up our book. If you're a Met fan, Ranger fan, we have 6 of them. There's a book there that you would enjoy. We're going to take a quick break, and on the other side, we're going to speak to Russ Cohn, who actually co-wrote a book with Howie Karpin, believe it or not. So keep it tuned right here to Sports Talk New York.
The Phoenix Tube Company Incorporated is among the country's leading manufacturers of structural ornamental stainless steel tubing, rectangles, squares, and processed flat bars. The company takes pride in its everyday commitment to quality and customer service. The philosophy of the company has been and continues to be to support the growth of the stainless tube market through distribution and service centers throughout the country. Ornamental and structural stainless steel tubing is used for a wide variety of aesthetic and mechanical products where superior finish and corrosion resistance are required. Some products manufactured include tubing for mirror bracket arms, boat rails and ladders, washroom grab bars, swimming pool rail products, medical equipment, automotive step bars and trimming, as well as structural framing for food processing equipment. For a quote or for more information on how the Phoenix Tube Company can meet your ornamental and structural stainless steel tubing needs, visit them on the web at phoenixtube.com or call them toll-free at 1-800-526-2124.
And welcome back to Sports Talk New York on the 365 Sportscast Network. Mark Rosen with you this Sunday evening. AJ not with us this Sunday, celebrating the second night of Passover. Want to wish everyone a happy Passover. It's time now for the NHL Report with Russ Cohn. It's sponsored by our friends over at Soho Table Hockey. What's table hockey, you say? Some of us might have grown up with rod hockey, bubble hockey, or even air hockey tables. Soho Table Hockey is embracing the nostalgia of those old tabletop games, designed a whole new board for the future. Handcrafted with designer wood, state-of-the-art playing surface, unbendable rods, energy-absorbing walls. This is a table hockey game that players age 8 to 80 can enjoy. Even better, the exceptional quality and design allows the game to stand up to the intensity of tournaments, which is why Soho Table Hockey is the #1 choice of championship players throughout North America. Visit SohoTableHockey.com to learn more. Start your order on a custom table. You can choose your wood, a centralized logo, even the team matchups. Go ahead, drop the puck. You'll love Soho Table Hockey so much you won't be able to stop playing. The one thing you will have to do, though, if you had Brendan Lemieux as one of the players on that Soho Table Hockey, you have to remove him from there and put him in an LA Kings jersey. Let's start right there. Listen, a fourth rounder, okay. Brendan Lemieux, impact player for the Rangers? No. Did you see this coming, and why did the Kings want Brendan Lemieux?
I did see it coming. I think I maybe even said it on your show a while ago that I just felt like he annoyed Quinn and probably JD at times too, like penalties in the offensive zone. Sometimes he does some good things. Like he had Scott Lawton off his game the last couple of games. Even in the first period of the last Ranger Flyer game, he had him off his game, but then he didn't. And then all of a sudden, I saw him handling the puck more, and he actually took a one-timer. And I swear, the minute he took a one-timer, in my head, I was thinking, that's probably the last one he's taking for the Rangers. I really did, because if he's taking one-timers something's wrong. And I just felt that way. It's hard to control him. There's some good things in his game, but there's a lot that you just can't control.
I agree, but on the flip side, I think you're right. I think he did things that annoyed Quinn and JD. But in the same respect, there were so many games I remember him being on the ice at the end of a game in a 1-goal game in the last minute of play that I just didn't understand. So, I don't know if there was this love-hate relationship. I don't get it. And plus the fact, Ranger Twitter, as Mike Capece said, is a whole different beast. And, they're all over it saying, he was the only guy with grit. There is no more grit in the NHL. Grit means that you take stupid penalties and put your team down a man, which 9 times out of 10 cost you. I think the trade was necessitated, obviously, because you need to find a spot for Kravtsov. And then you now have to make this decision. All right. Going forward. All right, you have DiGiuseppe, who just came off protocol, and he's back. Howden will be back. All right, you have, Colin, he's had an unbelievable season. All right,
he has.
He is still signed for next year. Howden is an RFA. DiGiuseppe is a UFA. Gauthier is, I think he's under contract next year.
He's an RFA.
Right, he's an RFA. All right, there's got to be more trades coming. So, do you sell, Colin now at probably his all-time high? And do you think there's a team on the bubble that sees him as an option?
Well, I'll tell you what. I would rather sell Rooney to a team that needs a penalty killer and keep Blackwell for another year because I feel like he's done enough to earn a spot on the team. But you're probably right. His value is at an all-time high. I do think there are teams that would want him. I think especially out west, where I think they're going to have some really physical games. And even though he's not the biggest guy, he seems to come away with the puck. And it won't be a team like the Kings. I don't think the Rangers will keep dealing with the Kings, but I could see could see a team like maybe the Oilers looking at him for some extra scoring pop. I could see, maybe even in the North, I kind of wonder if the Leafs would look at a guy like that because, again, I know they're looking for a certain type, and if they don't come away with a big-time scorer or a big defenseman like the Leafs are looking for, I wonder if they would accept him for like a fourth-line role because if they move up Thornton and Spezza a little in the lineup and it's Simmons the way they have lately, there might be a spot for him. So I think there's spots for Blackwell. I would hate to see him go now, though, because I do feel like he's been a good piece.
Mike brings up a good point when you're talking about training him to the Canadian teams. They lose him for a week because he has to quarantine.
Yeah.
So, and depending on when, if they are going to make that move, you're going to want to make that sooner than later.
Well, I think the Rangers are going to do stuff soon because I'm hoping they don't delude themselves into thinking they're really in it. I can't believe they would do that based on the fact that they're playing Kincaid. And the only reason I could see playing Kincaid this much is if you have to play a certain amount of games to be in the expansion draft. And I think that's what it is.
See, now I see this as something different. I see them saying, all right, we have Kincaid, let's take a look at what he is. Because listen, they're paying Georgiev to be a backup goalie at 2.7. That's a lot of money for a backup goalie when, next season, we all get back to normal. We have that 82-game season. Igor is going to play 60 of them. Okay, so the backup goaltender, is it a $2.7 million slot when you're going to need money for your RFAs or your Buchneviches going forward? They are very lucky in the fact that they have Keandre Miller. They have a lot of young players under team control, but there are guys that are going to start needing some money, and you have to start looking where that money is. The same thing, when you get rid of a DiGiuseppe or maybe a Rooney to make a room for Gauthier. Gauthier, even if he does well, if he gets a bump, he's still not even going to be $1 million player, and he's going to give you something. So I think these are all the conversations that they're going to come up very soon, and it's going to be interesting to see what they do. Let's take a look at the Islanders. Anders Lee goes down, and they really haven't missed a beat other than the Pittsburgh game last night. They've been playing very well. The guy who surprises me is Nick Leddy. I thought Leddy was done. Leddy is really playing very well.
He's played very well as of late. I agree with you. The skating is back. Although I had Andrew Gross on off the post one of my podcasts this morning, and he said Leddy is having a hard time with Mayfield because Mayfield was really good with Devin Taves, but of course they traded Taves. All that said, though, I still feel like Letty is doing well.
Yeah, I think they've gotten more out of him than they really expected going into the season for sure. Del Cole looks to has lost his job now a little bit. It looks like Wallstrom is starting to take over that spot, and
there's no doubt.
Yeah, kind of surprised. I mean, I think Del Cole.
Oh, I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised. I mean, I like Michael Del Cole to a point, but Wallstrom is one of the few Islanders that could score beyond like 15 feet with a one-timer, and he's got an exceptional one and an exceptional wrist shot too. And now that he's better defensively than he was a couple of years ago and actually seems to enjoy playing defense now, and he's more physical, Del Cole just can't score. He can't. And they only have room for so many grinders. This is a team that desperately needs to put the puck in the net. And like you said, they have to make these moves. And Gross also said he feels like Palmieri might stay with the Devils because he really wants to. And if that's the case, I would go for Raquel like tomorrow. He's the scorer they need.
But what's it going to take to get him from the Islanders? Is it going to take Ho-Sung and Del Cole and some draft picks?
It might, and I'm fine with giving that, because at this point, Ho-Sang's never going to play for the Islanders. Like, we all have to realize that. I think Ho-Sang, Del Cole, they probably might just ask for like a third at that point, because I think that is a good payment. And again, now you're getting a guy who's got 25 to 30 goal ability. That's what they need. They need that. And Golashev's coming, but the problem is, Gross was saying the last time he asked, there's still like issues with the work visa and everything else. So by the time he gets here, they may have already made their move. So he may just go to Bridgeport instead and play next year. So too bad on that one. I think he could have helped them, but I do think Raquel is a good player for them. I know they have the money to get Taylor Hall. I don't personally think that's a good fit.
Yeah,
I don't.
I think Taylor Hall is shot as a player for some reason.
I don't think he's shot, but I just don't think that's his best landing spot.
All right, so getting back to the Rangers, where are you slotting Kravtsov? What line is he on, and how does everything shift out because of that?
I'm going to slot him on the third line, and I'm not slotting him as a center either. I'm going to put him on the wing. I'm going to put him on the third and see if he can work his way up. I have to see if the mental maturity is there. We know the physical maturity is there. We know he could skate and he could score, and his stick handle's great. His defense is pretty good too, but we have to see if he could handle the mental rigors, game in, game out, and the off the ice stuff too. The travel, whoever they're going to pair him with. Maybe they pair him with Shesterkin. I hope they do something like that, or even Panarin if he sort of brings the kid along. Either way, that's a good way to do it. I know they had Lafreniere on the fourth line and he scored today. Maybe put him with Lafreniere and then somebody in the middle that's experienced. Maybe do it that way.
So wait a minute. So you're going to keep Kakko where he is, right?
Yeah.
You're going to put him with Hedl and does Gauthier move down to the fourth line?
Yes, Gauthier could be on the fourth line, and that's fine because he is a bigger body and he can play that grind it out and also get in the crease kind of hockey.
And give you some goals. Listen, yes. I know that David Quinn always admires the New York Islanders' fourth line, and I think you're right. I think with Rooney and Gauthier and Blackwell, you could have that type fourth line. I agree. All right, Russ, have a good rest of the holiday. We'll speak to you next week.
Thanks. And AJ's making us feel guilty for us being on and him being off. I'm just letting you know that.
Yeah, AJ's probably at Red Lobster. Come on, who you kidding?
Yeah. All right. See ya.
Russ Cohen here each and every week with the Soho Table Hockey Report. We'll take a quick break, and the other side we'll talk to the Capco NFL Report with Jay Retcher. So keep it tuned right here.
Decolator Cohen and DePrisco, LLP, is pleased to introduce their website, policeofficersrighttosue.com, as an educational and informative site designed to instruct members of the law enforcement community of their civil rights in line-of-duty accidents. Many law enforcement members are not aware of their rights to sue and fail to bring lawsuits within a specific time frame, thereby forfeiting their ability to seek rightful compensation against those parties that cause officers to be injured. PoliceofficersRightToSue.com provides successful past results of line-of-duty lawsuits. These examples range from officers being provided with inadequate equipment, RMP accidents, slip and falls, and station house mishaps. If any law enforcement member has a question regarding a potential lawsuit, they can contact DCD at policeofficersrighttosue.com or at 1-800-901-1LAW. That's policeofficersrighttosue.com or 1-800-901-1LAW.
And welcome back to Sports Talk New York on the 365 Sports Network. Mark Rosenman with you this Sunday evening. AJ is not here tonight. He is celebrating the second night of Passover, as is Chaim Tauber. But right now it's time for the Capco NFL Report with Jay Retcher. Even though it's winter, that's not. Even though it's spring, summer will be here before you know it. It's time to get your windows and doors ready to let that fresh air in and the bugs out with the Clearview retractable screen. The Clearview retractable screen system comes standard with a lifetime warranty and the patented speed reducer so it will not snap back. You get the luxury of a screen door and a sleek, low-profile design without the hassle of a bulky storm door or sliding screen door. Call 631-440-1100 for a free estimate. That's 631-440-1100, or visit them on the web at clearviewlongisland.com. Funny, actually, I don't even know why I'm in this group on Facebook, and I don't live in Comac anymore, but I was on the Comac Moms page, and someone was looking for a referral, and I actually put clearviewlongisland.com in the Comac's mom page. So hopefully they went to Clearview, Long Island. All right, Jay, so we're going to talk Jets and Giants and free agency right now. You take a look at the Giants. They signed receiver Kenny Galladay, 3 years, $54 million. Tight end Kyle Rudolph, 2 years, $12 million. Receiver John Ross, 1 year, $2 million. Defensive end Leonard Williams, 2 years, $45 million. And cornerback Adre Jackson, 3 years, $39 million. So it kind of looked, for the most part, everything the team did was trying to support their quarterback, Daniel Jones. The first three moves we mentioned are all about signings, building an offense in which Jones could succeed or at least not fail. And that's going to go a long way in determining whether Jones is a capable NFL quarterback going forward. Flip side, I don't think the Jets had that mentality, so much. But let's talk about those signings and what they mean to the possible maturation of Jones this coming season.
Well, I think what it does is it eliminates any of the excuses for Daniel Jones in this upcoming season. And you get that number one guy in Kenny Galladay, and then everybody else kind of slots down to where they should be, with Slayton playing on the opposite side of a number one. You got Sterling Shepard on the inside, and then you get hopefully a healthy Saquon Barkley coming back. And I like the signing of Booker too, Devontae Booker, as that backup running back. We saw Wayne Gallman do a really good job when Saquon went down last year. But there's no excuse. I still think they need to address the offensive line after trading Zeitler. So what do you do in the draft? I don't know if they're going to use their first pick. They could. The kid Slater out of Northwestern is a pretty tantalizing prospect. But by going out and signing Jackson to oppose Bradbury on that defense, and also to get Galladay, you don't have to reach for a corner or reach for a wide receiver with that first pick. You can almost get the best player available. So I think it bodes well for the Giants. They did spend a lot of money, but it'll be able to tell whether it's smart money or not here soon.
So, flip side, you take a look at the Jets, and whether you want to admit it or not, Joe Douglas and the Jets have been busy, but they haven't, they should be a lot more busy considering they have so much cap room. They still lack so many positions, cornerback, offensive line. Granted, there's still a lot of cornerbacks out there. And the O-line, they might take a look come April during the draft. But they've been very slow and very cautious with a team that has, I believe, the second most cap room in the NFL. Let's break down their moves so far. They signed former Tennessee Titans wide receiver Corey Davis, 3-year deal, $37.5, 27 of which is fully guaranteed. This was their big-time move. They finally get themselves a potential wide receiver number one, top receiver on the market. Jets haven't had a legitimate threat like him since Brandon Marshall. What do you see his high end being for them? And do they need a better quarterback to be able to throw to him?
Well, I like the move with Corey Davis. I think what he did with a offense in Tennessee where you know what you're getting. You're getting a steady dose of Derrick Henry and a lot of play action pass. I don't think you've seen the best of Corey Davis quite yet. So I like that, pairing him up with Denzel Mims, the pick from last year, and giving in some help there to Sam Darnold if he is the pick. I think it spoke volumes of the trade with San Francisco trading to the third pick instead of the second pick. You have to think that with Robert Saleh going from San Francisco to the Jets, that if they were going to trade and take a quarterback that the Jets maybe have wanted, that they would have done a deal with them and possibly traded up to the second pick. So I don't know. This deal, going to 3 there to me screams, all right, they have an idea of what the Jets are doing at 2. And they go from there. What do you get? Sewell, the kid from Oregon that opted out last year, as a protection for Sam Darnold. They can go that way, or you go with Zach Wilson, who wowed a lot of people with his pro day.
That's where I was going. Because, all right, so you also get Keelan Cole, who's not JoJo Smith-Schuster, but he does fit a need as an improved wide receiver core. Tyler Kroft as tight end is like, the meh emoji. It's like, really? And it's like, and Tevin Coleman running back, okay. But it's such a stark contrast. You take a look what the Giants did to give Jones everything possible to succeed. Yes, we did sign one, high-end impact wide receiver, but I don't think they've done nearly enough. And that brings us to BYU quarterback Zach Wilson. And you said he impressed everyone at his pro day. This kid, he might be that consolation prize for not getting Trevor Lawrence, just like and I'll use the hockey analogy, when number 2 pick goes to the Rangers and they got Kakko, it's almost like which was 1 and which was 1A. Could you have flip-flopped them? Listen, Trevor Lawrence is a consensus number 1 pick. We all wanted the Jets to fail so miserably, so he would be it. But I tell you, Zach Wilson has a little bit of that New York flair in him. I think he's got that swagger. I think that he's got that gunslinger's mentality. He's definitely, has some really funky release points as well. He reminds me a little bit of Aaron Rodgers. There's just something about his game that reminds me of Rodgers. I like Sam, and I don't think he's been given a fair shot here. And I think he's not going to get that fair shot here. I think the fan base is so – listen, the fan base wanted Trevor Lawrence so badly. They didn't get him. Now they're going to look like we didn't have Trevor Lawrence, and now we have Sam. I don't know. What do you think the Jets are doing with the number 2 pick?
Yeah, I think it's one of those things where sometimes it's the moves that you don't make that end up working out. And if we get closer and closer to the draft and they don't trade Sam Darnold, and you see a couple of different spots where people have mocked him to or said that there could be a trade to, whether it's a Pittsburgh or a Washington or maybe someplace out west. But man, I'm with you, man. I don't think you've really given Sam Darnold a full complement of A, offensive lineman, B, a good running game, C, competent receivers. So if you can go out, and if I'm the Jets, if I'm staying with Sam Darnold, I would look to trade down. There's so many quarterback needy teams out there. I think the more and more the time goes by and they don't trade Sam Darnold, they're kind of showing their hand a little bit. The one thing the Jets don't want to do is they don't want to keep Sam Darnold and then draft Zach Wilson, because then what happens is you lose all your leverage. And you see what the Dolphins did. They drafted, Arizona did, and they had Josh Rosen, and they draft Kyler Murray, and then they don't really get much in return for Josh Rosen. So if Sam's the guy, they need to go with Sam and build around him. Becton with the pick last year, a couple moves in free agency. And I'm okay with them not spending a lot of money, man, because you don't want to just throw bad money at players just because you have cap space. Sometimes it's better to kind of wait, make these smaller moves, don't engage in these big long-term deals so you tie up your team for years, because this team needs more than just a quarterback. They need a lot of pieces.
I agree. Listen, and again, I agree with you. I think if they're going to move on Sam, they need to do it now. And I think Zach would be a nice little consolation prize. Listen, are they ready to contend with Sam over the next 2 or 3 years the way this team is situated now? No. Would they be able to contend 3 years down the road with Zach? Maybe. Maybe we're just resetting the clock all over again, and maybe Zach becomes that franchise quarterback that we thought Sam would be, and we'll see. I mean, it's going to be interesting. You're right. We'll know once Darnold gets traded, then you know that Zach's going to be a New York Jet. All right, Jay, we will speak to you next week. Have a great one.
You too, buddy. Thanks.
All right, Jay Retcher here each and every week with the Capco NFL Report. I urge you to keep it tuned tonight to the 365 Sportscast Network. Immediately following us, Brett Topel put a best of show together. It will be the BT Talks Baseball show. Following that is a very, very cool show, and they will be on right after BT Talks Baseball. It's called Interlocking NYs, and it's a Met and Yankee fan, and they are just great. After that, you have Rich Catino's Mets Clubhouse Confidential, and followed up by sarcastic remarks about the Dallas Stars. So hope you enjoyed today's show, and we will see everyone next week. And make sure, keep it tuned right here for the rest of the evening. You won't be disappointed.